Hey, how you doing, everybody? This is Clint Butler and SIA, and I'm sighing because this is an older test. I want to illustrate the test and some of the test setup stuff, but I would caution you that the results of this test are probably significantly different now, just because the way Google Stacks are set up and how they have to be permissions set in order to actually meet anything for you. And a lot of people, they're just flat out ignoring it. Told them, showed them, tested it multiple times, and they're still ignoring it. They're still selling the customers, and they're still selling garbage. But let's get into this. It's test 46, Google Stacks. All right, let me be a little clear here. I tested this last year, 2020. This particular test is from the 2016 roll-up set back in the early days of SIA. But the idea and the testing behind it is all sound. But I'll say this right off the bat just to save you guys some time. The way that these stacks were made would not work at all today. Google has caught on to the Google Drive stack thing. They know that people are making software and making all kinds of tools and stuff, and they've done something about that in order to eliminate the effectiveness of Google Drive stacks as link building platforms. That being said, there is one way that's still there that some of the softwares and stuff, depending on how they make your drive stacks, is still being able to leverage it. And frankly, it's not because they're being smart. It's just because, well, frankly, if you build your stuff with the Google API, then it'll pass juice because the settings on the folders and the documents will be proper. If you build these manually and you don't have those proper settings, i.e. you haven't created a folder with, say, the API, and then manually built your stuff, you're wasting your time. They're not passing juice. Google is on to you. Google has fixed it. And it's time to, up your game. That being said, the method to make these public may or may not go away in the future. And if you're not prepared for that, you could be in a whole world of hurt. So if you have a way to make these things public for the web, and I'm giving you a hint right there, I haven't released this up too much outside of the SIA, but I have talked about it. But if you make these public to the web, not available to anybody, they got to be public to the web, then they will pass juice. Otherwise, wasting your time. Okay? So with that out of the way, test number one we actually did is set up an optimized Google Doc. Retested it now, still works. Optimized Google Doc is test number two, published through the Search Console Fetch tool, and it created a YouTube video optimized for the keyword using Google YouTube editing tools. The link to the experiment page is in the description of the video. So this is a Google Doc was created, optimized for now both the Google Doc and the YouTube page link back to the experiment page. That's essentially two backlinks. That is not necessarily a Google Drive stack, though. If you think about how those are all set up, it's all the Drive folders, and they all link to and they interlink to each other, and there's no mention of interlinking in there. So ergo, that wouldn't be a Google Drive stack. It would be just a link from two Google properties, YouTube and the Google Doc. This one's 5 automated pages. All the links were published at the same time. Properties were created using the Google Drive, Google Drawing, and a video. Google Drive and Google Drawing are a part of the Google Drive stack. I did not add Google Drawing into my 2020 test. That's a good reminder. I need to do that and check that out. So that's a Google Drawing, Google Doc, and a YouTube video. 3 links, not necessarily a stack because of the way that was written out. And I'm illustrating something here to you as you progress through these tests and we release them. Ultimately, we're going to get to test 100, and then I will release specific tests. I won't be releasing any more, and maybe we'll do 1 or 2 tests a month for the YouTube communities. Outside of the SIA thing, because some of you just don't want to buy SIA, we get it, whatever reason. I mean, you're crazy, but it's your money, and some you just don't want that, but you do appreciate some of the free stuff that we can give out, and we're more than happy to help out the community a little bit. So, I'm illustrating something to you here. Is one, if you're going to do these tests and you're going to write this stuff up, or you're going to have staff test for you, they need to know what wrong looks like. And in this case, we're testing supposedly Google Drive stacks, but we haven't created a Google Drive stack yet, have we? We've got the Google Drawing, we got the Google Doc, we got the YouTube, but we've not linked that up, and we've not actually done a real good stack. This is a doc, drawing, and sheet, and the video. We're getting a little bit closer, but if those are not interlinked to each other and the video is not linking to those and those aren't linking to the video and then they're all linking to the money site, we have not created a true stack. And so we'll keep that going. That's test number 5. And test number 6 is, let's see, what is it? Check the possible timing of the creation of the links. That's weird. If you're going to do a Google stack, typically you're going to create them all at the same time. But so here's the results of that one. Page 1, the experiment page, number 1 spot. That's the Google Doc. 2020, Google Doc did the same thing. Went set up correctly. Test number 2, experiment page is gone. The other test pages are being dropped from the SERPs. That is not necessarily an indication that Google Doc's bad. You have a YouTube video and a Google Doc. The Google Doc should have pushed that up, but the experiment page is gone. There could be something wrong with the domains, or there could be the first signs of Google filtering for multiple domains on a page. That would be something that had to be looked at, and right there. Technically, okay, test page. Rename number 4. If you take out the YouTube interference and then you make a case for 2 spots, that doesn't even make any sense. One, what is the YouTube influence? You're saying that if you want to take out the YouTube influence as part of your test, why in the bejesus would put YouTube in there in the first place? And it went up 2 spots. It went up 2 spots from the Google Drawing and the Google Doc, and I think they're assuming that's despite the fact that YouTube is there. So I don't know what's wrong with you testers. Why did you do this one? Test page technically stayed in the same position, but YouTube pushed it down to the 10th spot. So if YouTube pushed it down to the 10th spot, guess what? It didn't stay in the same position. The YouTube to the page hurt the website, hurt the page, and then the YouTube link actually took over in power. That's what happened there. It wouldn't technically stay the same. Test page continued to stay at number 3. Google shortener appears to hamper YouTube's ability to overpower test pages and sent some more power to the home page. That's an interesting claim. If it stayed the same and all the test pages all had the same amount of power and this one sent some power, then that wouldn't have stayed the same, right? So that means that the Google shortener actually negated the authority that you're getting out of the YouTube link that was probably in the description. Ergo, your page didn't move. And test page moved up from the number 4 spot to the number 3 video not showing in the search results, and that's the 6th one here. It was the beneficial link. So the Google Doc moved it up, and then they built all those other links, and it didn't do any good after that, is what I'm getting out of this. So if you read all of these, technically you really only need your Google Docs. Why would you don't need the rest of them because you're not getting any extra benefit out of them in this setup. Again, not a Google stack, entitled a Google stack, but not a Google stack. And so the next obvious step there is to individually check each one of these again, Google Docs, Drawing, Sheets, see what has the power to move a website. And see if you can build and identify a really good working combination. If you want to do that, or if you just want to go with the most powerful one and screw the rest, you can do that too. And then move on from there and maybe playing around with the variations. So Drive and sheets and docs and drawings and sheets, and see if you get any benefit out of all that mess. But right now, my test 2020, this test 2016, Google Docs is the way to go. Public through the web is a requirement. So I hope you appreciate this test and just the presentation of it. I know this one's a little bit longer than the rest of them, and that is by design because there was just so much wrong with this one. It had to be said because if you're reading it, you just won't really get a whole much out of it. And I wanted to point out things that are wrong, and that these lessons here, just because they're wrong, they're not unnecessary lessons. We need to know how to do this stuff so that we actually, if you're doing SEO testing or you're writing journals and monitoring what you're doing, you need to clearly and concisely explain what you are doing, so that when you go back to it, or you send, or you're creating an SOP out of it, or you're trying to teach a new staff member out of it, or you're trying to teach a friend how to do some stuff for you, that it's all written down in clear, concise English. And when you're coming back to these 2016 tests, man, some of them are rough. But we're getting better at SIA. So appreciate you, and I hope you enjoy this test, and I'll see you on the next one.